only reason that I did it is so that I could see and my friends can see my honey brand up
Wow.
on their shelves. And she goes, huge mistake. I lost money.
Hey friends, I'm Zach.
And I'm Trish, and you're listening to
The Backwoods Business Podcast, where we talk with real people
about real business
who have real problems
and real solutions. Let's get real.
Today we have an expert in his field, the maple field, Tim Burton, the owner of Burton's Maplewood Farm in Indiana.
Tim, thank you so much for hopping on with us today. We're so happy to have you here. You want to tell us a little bit about this amazing business of yours?
Yeah, so it's a family-owned business. This is a small business here in Indiana, southern Indiana. And we're basically maple syrup producers. We produce pure 100% pure maple syrup. And a few years into making our maple syrup, we decided to try barrel aging our maple syrup and used distiller barrels to see if we could get a different profile where those barrels would complement the maple syrup notes. And so it was a success. And so that has kind of taken over our business in terms of the product line is now bourbon, rum, brandy, barrel-aged maple syrups. And so we've been fortunate enough to have a pretty nice following with that. And that's the majority of our business now.
Well, that's what happens when you have an awesome product. I know when we first met you, probably 4 years ago, something like that. We loved all of them, but especially you had this Hatch Chili maple syrup. That was really good. Yeah, that one was good. And then there was the other one. What was the other one that we got too?
I don't know. You love that Hatch Chili one.
Yeah,
you
the Hatch Chili. I put it on
everything.
all sorts of stuff.
Everything.
I
It's
remember
not just for
sauteing some
breakfast.
onions in it and with it and everything. It was fantastic. But yeah, you have a great product, so it's obvious why you have a good following as well. Once people taste it, they're hooked, right?
Yeah, that was the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta that we met.
Yeah.
And that's where we introduced the Hatch Chili. Actually, it was in Albuquerque and Las Cruces, New Mexico, were the two New Mexico events that we introduced that to. But I wasn't familiar with what a Hatch Chili was, and people of New Mexico looked at me like I had a hole in my head when I said, "What's a hatch?"
Yeah. Honestly, we were kind of the same way when we first got to New Mexico as well. People were all excited about this Hatch Chili. Little did I know Hatch was a city or a town in New Mexico. That's why they call it Hatch. And I didn't realize how big that was. We went to a grocery store here in Montana recently and saw Hatch Chilies for sale. I didn't even know it was, it even said 505, the area code of Albuquerque. So I didn't know it was that big.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I didn't realize. So
I'll tell you something that's kind of funny about that. So it was suggested to me the very first time we were at the Las Cruces. I think it was the Las Cruces Wine Festival or the New Mexico Wine Festival. Mm-hmm. And somebody had made that suggestion. Why don't you get some Hatch Chili and steep that in your maple syrup? And so I said, "What's a Hatch Chili?" They told me. Anyway, I connected with a producer, and Jason Nicole and his wife, and they sent me 70 pounds of roasted Hatch chili.
Oh my gosh!
Wow!
And so we steeped that in some bourbon maple syrup, and took it back down there the following year, and I had about 6 people or more throughout the event that looked at the bottle and said, "Well, we can tell a gringo made this." And I said, "Well, why? How do you know a gringo made it other than you're dealing with me?"
You're looking at him.
They said, "You spelt chili CHILI."
Oh, instead of
opposed
Chile.
to CHILE.
Yeah.
Well, all right, you had me there too. I would have spelled it with an I as well.
Yeah. So needless to say, I didn't make that same mistake the following year.
That's all right.
And kind of the rest is history. So.
Oh, that's funny.
That's
funny. Live and learn.
Yeah.
It still tasted good, I guarantee it.
That's business, isn't it? You're constantly adapting and changing things for the market, right?
That's right. That's
I bet
right.
if
So
you sold that up in Vermont, people wouldn't even notice the I versus the E, right?
yeah, but I don't know. Like you say, the Hatch name is becoming very well known. So
Yeah.
there'll be more loyal followers for Hatch. So
Sure.
I've got my ducks in a row.
That's
Awesome.
good. That's good.
It's good stuff.
So on that note, how we met and your products, how for us, my perspective, I guess I should say, my perspective on your business, which is very narrow, is that you sell a lot of your products at shows, and what it looks like to us is that might be your main source of advertising, way of getting in front of people. Would you say that's accurate? And do you think, why did you choose that path? That if it is accurate, what do you think?
Well, it was, we accidentally stumbled across an event in Vail, Colorado called Gourmet on Gore. We were contacted by the organizers and we went out. And so I talked with my wife. We said, hey, do you want to go out and do this event? I don't know if we'll sell very much syrup, but the worst case scenario will be in a beautiful part of the country. And anyway, so we went out there, and the local newspaper, the Vail Daily, they did a story. There was a reporter that called us and said, hey, we understand you're coming out. We'd like to talk with you a little bit about, your product. And in the conversation, I had mentioned that we provided a rum barrel-aged maple syrup. This is in the very beginning, to Oprah Winfrey's farewell brunch that Chef Art Smith was having for her in Chicago. And so we provided our maple syrup. And so the reporter, Carmi Petrowski, she said, wait a second, you provided this to Oprah's farewell brunch? And I said, yes. And so that went into the story.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
And to say that, print is dead it's not completely true. A lot of people say, well, you get most of your content now online, and a lot of people do. But the Vail Daily is in print out there, and it was unbelievable the response that we had when we were out there. We sold out.
That's wonderful.
And there were other farmers market managers that also read that article. So they emailed us while we were out there and said, we'd love for you to drop in. So we couldn't do it because we didn't have any inventory left, but we said, hey, maybe there's something here. And so we planned the next summer to come out and do drop-ins in like Dillon and Steamboat, Estes Park. And it was really well received. So then we thought, well, we have something here. And then we started focusing on farmers markets and special events. And so that's how it got started.
Awesome. So before that kicked off down that path, were you selling online or no?
Yeah, we had an online presence, but our online sales, and I'm one of these people. I think a lot of people are misinformed, and again, I'm one of them. That if you have a website and you have a store, e-commerce built into it, that just because you have that doesn't mean that your sales are going to go through the roof. You still have to drive people to that website. And so the analogy that I use when people ask me about the success that we've had, I always tell them having a website or e-commerce platform is just like having a billboard in the Mojave Desert. And there's a road that goes by that billboard. You've got to figure out, how do you get those people off the interstate and drive down that road and past your billboard?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely.
That's very accurate.
So once you figure that out, then you can formulate a plan. And so that's what we did over the course of several years. Yeah.
So with the shows, you're basically bringing that billboard to the cities.
That's right.
Yeah, you have a mobile billboard, so that's
right.
Good. Yeah, and I think it definitely helps how you present at the shows. You have the little tasting cups. Do you still do that? We haven't seen you in a show in a while, but you still have the little tasting cups?
Yeah, we do. We have these little tiny half-ounce plastic cups that people can sample the product, because I mean, there's a reason that at Sam's Club they have the samples that it's the consumer tries it, and if they like it, it's very impulsive, and they'll buy the product.
That's awesome.
So we still do that. Yeah, we still do that.
Awesome. So it works. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So
and then we also go beyond that, and we talk about what the different applications are for the maple syrup. It goes beyond waffles, pancakes, and crepes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, honestly, what sold me on it initially was, I think you were the one talking about how you made a cheeseburger with sautéed onions with the maple syrup in there, and it just sounded amazing.
Done.
I said, yes, let's do that. So I think we bought 4 or 5 bottles. Yeah,
that was an idea from a customer at an event in Kansas City, Missouri. And when the gal said to me, Tim, I'll take a bottle of your Kentucky bourbon barrel-aged maple syrup. I'm going to caramelize onions and put it on a burger. It was just like, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
And so, that was pretty mind-blowing. And so that was the first thing I made when I got back to my farm, and it was on point.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That is really cool.
So back to your business with the products. What kind of hurdles do you think you've overcome or have seen, maybe whether it's the logistics of it, like we were talking very briefly offline, or just moving it, manufacturing it? Do you have any hurdles that you think you've that challenged you and then you overcame?
Yeah, I mean, there's different aspects of making maple syrup that entail having different variables that you have to deal with. The first thing and foremost is Mother Nature. I mean, it goes back to the very beginning of how maple syrup is produced. And so, we're looking for, because our window to make maple syrup is only 6 weeks out of the year.
Holy cow.
I didn't realize it was so small.
Yeah, so once that's finished, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So we are looking for below freezing temperatures at night and above freezing temperatures during the day in this 6-week period of time. And Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate.
Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah. So that's the first hurdle. And then once we produced the maple syrup, that was also another business decision that we had to make, was how much of this maple syrup are we going to put in bulk packaging. Bulk packaging would be on a commercial size where we're dealing with restaurants, and we're selling the maple syrup in 3.5 and 5-gallon buckets. Well, that's what we did initially for a few years, and we pounded the pavement and beat the bushes up in Chicago and developed some really great relationships with some notable chefs and restaurants. And then once we had that experience in Vail, it became really clear that it made more business sense, CENTS, to go with a retail bottle, a 12-ounce bottle, because we had a greater return. And so we gradually started pulling back from the commercial side of it. And it just so happened that it all worked out really well for us. By the time of COVID, we already had established ourselves in a lot of markets around the country. So when COVID hit, people were gravitating to our online website, and that kept our head above the water.
That's good. So you saw a definite uptick in your online sales afterwards too?
Absolutely. Yeah. It was really, really, really great. So, and we focused more on social media and that type of thing. So there was
social media is always a challenge.
Yeah, there was definitely an uptick. And I'll give you an example. My former event manager, who is a friend of yours, Brad Kerouac, at the time, Brad, this was in 2018, at the end of 2018, Brad had asked me if I knew how many event days we had on the books for 2018. And I said, well, I should know right off the top of my head, but I don't, Brad. I said, how many event days? And he said 1,080.
I remember this conversation. I remember this.
Yeah, I mean, my jaw dropped, and I went, "What?"
What?
I said, "That's impossible." He goes, "No, that's my job to know," and that's what we did. I said, "Oh my gosh, there's only 365. I mean, that doesn't make sense, Brad. I didn't realize we had that many event days, not events, but event days." And then in 2019, we did over 1,100.
Wow.
But we also were fortunate to develop a relationship with some large companies that had food-driven events that were for a long period of time as well. So that certainly helped. Yeah. So
okay, so how do you cover 1,100 events as a small business? Like, what do you have a team? I know you have VIFs, which I love.
That's right.
Tell us about those, and how did you figure that was like, maybe that's the answer, because we cannot copy ourselves.
Yeah, that was exactly. I mean, that's one of those variables that we had to kind of figure out logistically.
Yeah.
Is I can't be there at every location. And so we started talking about, well, what if we had people that lived in those communities run our booth at the farmers market in these different cities? And so we started reaching out, and Brad was very reluctant at first. He was like, "What? How? I mean, how do you do that?" And I said, I don't know, Brad, but we can do it.
Oh, that's awesome.
We just have to put our best foot forward. And so we started reaching out, and that he was doing a lot of that heavy lifting. And I had started doing it prior to Brad coming on full time as my event manager. So I knew it could be done. Yeah. But in terms of building it out as big as I wanted to build it out at that time, I didn't know what all of the avenues were, but I said, we'll figure it out. And so anyway, that's how we did it. And we've been very fortunate.
On the technical side of that, how did you maybe advertise for those positions? If you did advertise, how did you get the word out that you were looking to have people do that? And were they employees, contractors? How did you actually work that?
Well, we used social media, and then we also used the different contacts that already had established. Gotcha. And that seems to work out really well. If I have somebody that knows what the job entails, they will typically make good recommendations on candidates that they would want to be working for them.
Okay.
That makes sense. I actually remember that because we had a similar conversation at that balloon fiesta. I remember, and we were talking about it because TFT Wood was still pretty new at that point. Yeah. And so we're thinking, hey, maybe we'll do this. And then kind of like you were saying, we were your contact at that point, and then we started saying, well, you know what, our friend Laura would probably be great at this. She loves talking to people. And so yeah, exactly, that makes sense. Just building networking basically is all that boils down to, is the networking, huh?
Right. That's exactly right. And as long as your product there's enough margin.
Another question on that, when it comes to wholesale versus retail, it's retail obviously has bigger profit margins for each bottle, but along with retail, what we've noticed at least is you're gonna have to spend more money in other ways. For example, your VIFs out there, you're gonna have to give them commissions, or you're gonna have to spend on advertising. There's gonna be other money spent to get your brand out there recognizable for people to actually commit to spending those dollars, versus wholesale. It's one relationship, two relationships to move a larger quantity. So for you, the profit margins are there, like you said, but I guess what led you to committing, saying yes, we're going to go all in on the retail versus the wholesale?
It was because of the margins, and it was because of the margins. And so I really don't. I'll never say never, but at this point, getting into wholesale, that's not a part of a model right now. A lot of times when you talk with retailers and you give them the pricing, they're looking for a 50% discount.
Yeah,
And-
that Keystone. Yeah, that got us when we first realized what that was too. Man, that's a big discount.
Yep. And I've had opportunities from some pretty notable brands.
Yeah.
I'll just say this: there was one company that has the name Sonoma, is the last name.
All right.
And they were interested in working with us, but they were also making some strong suggestions that in order to be in there, our prices were going to have to be at a certain level. And sometimes you just have to, tell them thank you, but no thank you. And you just have to move on. Because it can be a really big ego stroke. And if you realize that it's nothing more than an ego stroke for yourself to have your brand up on their shelves, that's not the reason to be in business.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
You'll go broke,
Yeah.
So you have to do what's best for your business and stay true to the model that is going to take care of you. That's one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give somebody
that's
going
huge.
into this.
That's huge. I think, especially as like a small business owner, it's very tempting when a large, well-known brand comes in and says, "Hey, we might be interested in carrying this product." Like, oh, we actually did something that somebody else thinks is, worthy of these shelves. I know I shop at those places, and so if I saw my product up there, I'd be like, "Well, that's me. Like, that's awesome.
Right.
I did that." But that comes at a huge price, like you're saying, and it's really hard to just look at the dollars and cents of it and say, does this make sense for the amount of energy, work, effort, love, passion that you put into this project to then hand it over at, such a low level most times.
It's funny. That's why I think we make a great team for our business. Is I couldn't care less what other people's opinion is of TFT Wood or me. I need to a little bit, but that's where she comes in. She comes in to make sure that we're portraying the right image and everything. So we're a good balance. I come in to stop her from worrying about just getting into this store, even though we're losing money to get into the store. I said, no, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. I had a honey producer friend up in Chicago that jumped in to this company's as a vendor, and she circled back and she said to me, she goes, "The only reason that I did it is so that I could see and my friends can see my honey brand up on their shelves." And she goes, "Huge mistake. I lost money." And she said, "What's the point of being in business if you're going to lose money?"
Absolutely.
We all have heard about the lost lead, that's been going on for years, where supermarkets will offer a gallon of milk below price to get you in there. So that you can then go shopping for other items that they're making their margins on.
Yeah.
But if you just have one product, you can't give it away, let alone lose money. So
exactly.
So the loss leader concept and everything is great if you have multiple items that you're trying to get the attention of the consumer with.
Yeah, things that will apply hundreds of products that will apply to everybody in your demographic that's shopping at your store, because you can't just have one or two even extra products, upsell products. You need a whole lot of upsell products that have great margins for that to work, I think. Yeah,
and we've also made the conscious decision not to have our maple syrup available on Amazon now.
Yeah. Us too, actually, with all of our products. We don't want to sell on Amazon personally.
Yeah. That's not to say that if somebody goes on Amazon and puts a search in for Burton's Maplewood Farm maple syrup, they're not going to find it, because there are people that will buy it from us on our website, and then they will put a huge margin, or a huge markup on it, and then make it available on Amazon. So, but it's not us making that decision.
Yeah. It makes sense.
That's crazy. Yep. Yeah, it's a whole nother beast. It's similar to the big box store. I have definitely been drawn, like, oh, but maybe we could do Amazon.
Yeah.
As a consumer, I love Amazon. I love how hassle-free it is, to go ahead and buy something, return it, whatever. From a small business perspective,
it's rough.
It looks like a nightmare.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do it. So it's definitely, it's also something we've.
There was a vendor. We were at the Austin Women's Junior League Christmas event. This is several years ago, and I had a vendor come over and say, "Hey, how are your numbers? How are you guys doing?" I said, "Oh, we're doing great." I said, "How about yourself?" He goes, "Terrible." And I said, "Really? This is always a good show." He said, "Yeah, but with what we're seeing with the consumers that are coming in," he goes, I've literally had a dozen people, and the show just started. The consumer will come in, they'll see an item that I have, they'll take a picture of it, and right there, he says, they'll go to Amazon to see if they can get it at a better price on Amazon, which they can. And he goes, and they order it right there.
Wow.
And he goes,
That's
there's
rough.
nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
Man.
That's really
hard.
hard.
That's hard. But that's one more reason to not be on Amazon right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Gives you a little exclusivity.
Exactly.
You've got to go directly to the maker, which keeps more in your pocket anyway. So.
Right. And the product that we do have, I mean, there's a lot more that goes into making barrel-aged maple syrup than just throwing it in a barrel and letting it ride and bottling it up. And there's a lot more to it than that.
So we've noticed something. I'm curious, outside of us, because we live in a vacuum sometimes. I like to get other people's opinions on it as well. When it comes to packaging, how important do you think that packaging is? And when you come out with a new packaging, do you see a notable uptick in sales? Do you have an increase in profit margins, or what do you think when it comes to the packaging?
Well, I think that's as important as the quality of your product. If you put your time into making sure that your packaging is a reflection on the artisanal value of your product, it's the packaging that's going to catch most people's eyes, and they're going to look at that, and as long as it conveys value. Because somebody told me a long time ago, and I have never I first debunked this theory or this thought years ago, but in many cases there's three factors that consumers base their buying choice on, and one's quality, one is price, and one is good customer service. And you'll never get all three. And I thought, oh, that's crazy. What do you mean you'll never get all three? No, think about it. You'll never get all three, because if you give up pricing, then if you get good pricing, you typically are going to have to give up the service, or you're going to have to give up the quality of the product. And I thought, oh, that's a bunch of bunk.
It's not.
The product. I mean, so when you go to Walmart, what are you getting? You're getting pricing, and you're getting quality in terms of but you're giving up. Sorry, folks at Walmart, but you're giving up that personal service.
Absolutely.
One cash register person out of 40 cash registers.
Right. Right. But if you were to go to Nordstrom's, you're going to get good quality, and you're going to get great customer service. Typically, the pricing is not. The people that go there are not. We're not going there.
We're not bringing coupons to Nordstrom. Exactly.
Right. And I think that's a really important part in the very beginning for a business owner to kind of establish that. What do you want to be? Do you want to have a product for the masses, or would you rather be an artisanal artisan, or have an artisanal product?
That was one of the discussions we had early on.
Still today, I have not found a product where you can get all three. Now, I'm sure there's somebody that says, oh, bologna, you could get that from this company or that company or whatever. But ordering it from Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
what do you get?
Yeah.
You can get pretty good pricing. You can get good pricing, and you can get decent quality because you know what you're buying. But when it comes to customer service, I mean, it's not a slam on Amazon.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's a faceless organization, basically. That's what you're getting. There isn't really customer service in the sense where you can just call somebody up and say, hey, this bottle had a chip in it or whatever. It's not the same kind of thing. Yeah, it's faceless. You might as well be talking to a computer. So
That's exactly.
So our timing wise, you had a lot of valuable information and we loved it. It was fantastic. Thanks for watching the Backwoods Business Podcast.
Make sure you like and subscribe below.
And when our next episode is available, it'll pop up right over there. Make sure you click it. Get it. Get it.